This is the Ford Explorer Tremor, and it's the latest in a line of... Huh? That's not the name? It's not just that I want to like the Ford Explorer Tremor, I genuinely do. Not only does it look great, but it drives the way it should, and this one's got a 400 horsepower surprise stashed under the hood. But that's at least a contributing factor to what I'm so hung up on here, and it's hard to look past the enormous asking price that comes with this unquestionably cool SUV. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. All right, the Tremor isn't the first attempt at a sort of rugged version of the Explorer, because don't forget there was a Timberline that came out, I don't know, something like 4 or 5 years ago. And it was similarly executed, but it didn't quite go as far as this. And that's why I'm happy to see the Tremor treatment applied to this 3-row SUV. It's the same trim you can get on Ford's Super Duty pickups, as well as the F-150 and the full-size Expedition SUV. Now, I will say I think this one looks cooler than the Timberline, plus it's got some extras, skid plates up front and underneath. It's also got about a 1-inch lift in the suspension, not crazy, but it is helpful, as well as a rear limited slip differential. Pretty cool, that wasn't the case before. And then, of course, you get the all-terrain tires that you used to be able to get. And that makes this thing competitive with entries like, I don't know, the Honda Pilot Trail Sport, as well as the Hyundai Palisade XRT Pro. And there are a few others from, I don't know, Nissan, Kia. There are a whole bunch in this segment, as well as smaller SUVs, because all of these kind of pseudo-adventurous things are really popular these days. Ever since the pandemic, people want to at least look like they explore the great outdoors, and so automakers will happily oblige. Now, as it happens, this version of the Explorer is priced smack in the middle of the Pilot Trail Sport and the Palisade XRT Pro at about $62,000 before tax, but that is before options, and the list is pretty extensive. This one I'm testing has just about every single one of them, including an ultimate package that adds $11,000 to the price tag, which is absolutely insane, because it means this one I'm driving is 79 grand before tax. Yikes, that is so much money. Now, yes, it does come with some cool features. Massaging front seats, you cannot get those in any other SUV like this, especially on the mainstream market. And then there is this 400 horsepower twin turbocharged V6 under the hood that is an absolute howler. Anyway, if you look past the price, which I know is very difficult to do, I'd say this is actually one of my favorite SUVs this size. Not just the Tremor trim, but since that's the one I'm testing and it's the newest one for 2026, it's the one we're going to focus on. And right out of the gate, I can tell you that the ride and handling is among the best out there. It's not necessarily the most comfortable, but that's kind of the point, because it feels planted and truck-like, but then it's got a bit of that compliance you'd expect from a family-friendly crossover. It's a very nicely balanced machine, and the steering is perfect. Now, it's maybe a little light at low speeds because it's a variable ratio, so you can't really tell which direction the front wheels are pointed, which can be at least a little bit troubling in parking lot situations when you're trying to maneuver and maybe you forget which direction the wheels are pointed. But it firms up really nicely. It gets a nice amount of resistance that is perfectly tailored to the size of the Explorer. Now, getting back to the ride for a second, it's okay. It's just not as smooth as you can find elsewhere. It really starts to get unsettled over a sequence of bumps, or I don't know, if you're on a really rough road, you can feel it. And you can feel the big and heavy wheel and tires pulling at the suspension. That's kind of to be expected with a setup like this, but it's pretty good for the most part, and over smoother roads, it's pretty much perfect. This thing has that substance, but it's also got that smoothness, and that's what I like about it the most. And then I've got to say, it's not just this engine that's so good, but the 10-speed automatic transmission that it's hooked up to is just perfect. The tuning is fantastic, and whether you're talking about upshifts or downshifts, they are buttery smooth. You don't even notice them unless, of course, you really bury your foot to the floor. But how often are you doing that? Whether you're driving around every day or you're out on the trail. But then having that 400 horsepower and I don't know, 415 pound-feet of torque, this thing flies. And you know, I've got to say the trade-off, it's not really much because this thing is fairly efficient now. It's officially rated for something like 12.4 liters per 100 kilometers combined, which isn't great, but it's slightly better than the Palisade XRT Pro. And that thing has a pretty pedestrian V6 under the hood, nothing like this twin turbocharged setup. So I'd say what you're getting in return for this high output motor isn't so bad in the context of the segment as a whole. Yeah, the Pilot and a few others do a little bit better, but considering what you're getting, it is impressive, but the efficiency isn't terrible for the performance that comes with it. Now, of course, the Explorer has all-wheel drive, which is standard in Canada. And I actually want to take a quick second and talk about that because Ford calls it four-wheel drive, but that's just not the case. And I know some of you might say I'm nitpicking, but the reality is that four-wheel drive generally means that it's a selectable system with, I don't know, high or low range gearing or something like that. Whereas in this case, it's fully automatic. Yes, there are some drive modes that you can cycle through using this dial down here on the console, but it doesn't change the fact that it's running all-wheel drive. You can't control just the all-wheel drive system. It's more of a holistic setup. So that means this is all-wheel drive. It doesn't really matter, and that's the case with just about every other SUV this size, but I figure it's worth pointing out anyways. It's not often you can describe a bunch of anodized yellow accents as subtle, but I'd say that's a fair assessment of the Explorer Tremor, or at least it's all very tastefully applied. Each wheel has a single yellow pocket. There's some trim on the rear bumper, these recovery hooks, this bar across the grille, and a single Tremor badge. That is it, and I like the look overall. And this bar on the front, I think it helps a lot because I do not like this grille that was introduced with the facelift. It is very big and boxy, but this makes it look a little more subtle. Again, very bizarre considering that it's yellow, but I'd say it helps. It also is where you can find the LED off-road lights, which is a nice touch, although it makes this thing look even more like an unmarked police cruiser, especially in a paint color like this gray. I've said it once and I'll say it again. There is a special place in hell for anyone who orders an Explorer like this, because we all know that everyone else on the road is going to panic the first time they see it in the rearview mirror. Now, another solid reason to go with the Explorer over another SUV this size is the space inside as well as how it's used. Now, officially, this thing's got a little bit less cargo room than something like the Palisade and quite a bit less than the Honda Pilot, but still, it's very well used. The cargo area itself, it's a nice box. The load-in height, fairly low overall. Now, this one with that upgrade package means it's got power folding rear seats. That's handy because the buttons are just inside the tailgate. I mean, if you've got your hands full, you don't have to put them down and reach inside and pull some handles. I also like the way the passenger space is used. But before we get to that, let's talk about the steps that are just inside both rear doors. They are huge, and they give you a place to stand if you want to mount anything on the roof of this. I like that thoughtfulness. I also like the thoughtfulness of the cubbies throughout the cabin, the cup holders that are on either rear door, and those are very helpful considering this thing has captain's chairs instead of a bench where you can fold down the middle section for some cup holders. So again, lots of thoughtfulness here, which I like, and I really like this new infotainment system. Now, it runs through a 13.2-inch touchscreen, but it's a Google-based system, and it is very good. It's got integrated maps as well as a built-in Wi-Fi hotspot, which, by the way, you can pay for sort of a, 7-year subscription or something like that, so you don't have to worry about monthly payments, and you can hook up 10 devices, I think, at the same time. There are also all kinds of apps that you can download, including YouTube, games, you name it. It's kind of like an EV experience. Now, of course, you cannot use those while the vehicle is in motion, but it's very cool because, let's say you go camping with the kids and they're bored, because we all know how kids get. Well, you can fire up the Wi-Fi or tell them to go play a game on the touchscreen and keep them out of your hair, at least momentarily. That's very cool. Now, of course, if you want to hook your phone up instead, there's wireless Apple CarPlay as well as Android Auto, and you can use the maps through that. But if you just sign into the built-in maps, you get all the good stuff that comes from your phone right here. It's a very responsive setup, bright, crisp graphics, and the cameras are very good too. And since we're on the subject of tech, we should talk about BlueCruise, which is available, and it continues to lead the way in the industry at large. Yeah, GM Super Cruise is also very good, but I really like the way this is executed. Now, it is optional, so same sort of thing with that connected package. You can pay for a kind of permanent subscription. You can get a trial period. There are some different options. If you pay the, I don't know, $3,300 in Canada, you can have it for the life that you own the vehicle. And that means hands-free highway driving help that is very good. It can also change lanes automatically. All you got to do is activate the signal. Another cool feature that's been added more recently by Ford is that it will automatically move over to give wide vehicles in an adjacent lane just a little bit more room. It is a very confidence-inspiring setup. I really like it. And the rest of the advanced safety stuff is very good too. Blind spot monitoring, forward collision warning with automatic emergency braking, lane keep assist, lane departure warning, adaptive cruise control that works without that hands-free setup. It's all there and it is all very good. It also helps to paint at least a little bit of a picture where you see where the money's going, but I'm telling you, this thing just costs way too much. To recap, I like the well-suited ride and handling of the Ford Explorer Tremor, as well as its added features and 400 horsepower engine. I don't like how expensive it is with that thing under the hood, or how lifeless the steering is at low speeds. Oh, and did I mention how expensive it is? If you've watched any of my recent reviews and it seems like I've been getting hung up on pricing, it's because I have, and I get that there are factors to take into account like inflation or in some cases tariffs, but I almost spit my coffee out back when I tested the Honda Passport Trail Sport, and that thing was 63 grand. Now I'm standing here with a Ford Explorer that's almost 80,000 bucks before tax, and it feels like the entire industry is going crazy and the rest of us are just along for the ride. Now in this case, you can skip that expensive upgrade package, which is going to save you a whole bunch of money, but it seems like Ford lost the plot a bit when it brought the Tremor treatment to the Explorer, and it's a shame considering how cool it is otherwise.